I think this spurred my curiosity about the world in general. I wanted to understand it. And when it came time later for me to choose a subject of study in history, I was interested in two fields: ancient history, in which I minored as an undergraduate, and modern history, modern European history. And I decided I was attracted to the ancient history because it was a definite, almost encompassed body of knowledge. But I think because I was Jewish and because I'd grown up post-Holocaust, I needed to understand the modern world. So although I continued to minor in ancient history right through graduate school, my major became modern European history. But peculiarly enough, the Holocaust was not taught at all as a separate subject. When I was trained as an historian, it was part of German history or World War II, and only a very brief part. And it was only after the Eichmann trial and the appearance of a very famous book in 1961 or 2 that the Holocaust became a subject of study. And only maybe 30 years later did I become a teacher of the Holocaust under prompting from the Holocaust Educational Foundation. They tried everybody else in the Valley, and nobody else wanted to teach it after David Wyman retired from UMass. And the Holocaust Educational Foundation was a group of survivors in the Chicago area who hired a man named Zev Weiss, Theodore Weiss, a Hebrew educator who was a survivor of Auschwitz, same class as Elie Wiesel. And he called me on the phone in 1991 or 2 and started haranguing me, as was his habit, about that I should do this. And I didn't want to do this because I had no training. I said, I'm not competent. I mean, when I went to graduate school, nobody taught the Holocaust. I don't know anything about it, except generally speaking. He said, well, what do you need to do this? I said, I tried to think of qualifications that he wouldn't accept. I said, well, I would need to buy a lot of books. I don't have a library. I haven't read the literature. In those days, literature that was 20 years ago, was a lot smaller than it is today. And I said, and then I need to have time to read the books. I really have to have a semester off, or at least half teaching load. I thought, oh, God, he's never going to go for this. He said, we'll do it. So he gave me $500. He gave the department money to get me time off at UMass. And I spent time reading, and I began teaching the Holocaust. And I went to they began a series of conferences every 2 years. And I went to the second one, which was in 1992 at Northwestern. And I went to every one after that every other year, and I helped organize some of them. And then I went on a couple of trips to Eastern Europe with them, and then I led a tour of Eastern Europe with them, and then I led a tour of Israel for them, and so on. So I became very involved. And this goes back to that very early period when I had felt that wonder about how did this happen, and how could it happen that people were killed like that just because they were Jews. So my later career, in a sense, was prompted by my early childhood, almost childhood feelings. And